Hello, my name is Richard Sherman, and I'm a training coordinator with Human Resources. For the next 20 minutes or so, I'll be highlighting several important areas of the County Ethics Ordinance. Our objective is to educate you not only on the ordinance, but to help you understand the very real issues that the County Ethics Officer addresses on a daily basis. Our ethics officer for Shelby County Government is Damon Griffin, an assistant county attorney. Mr. Griffin wants each employee to have his contact information. So here it is. You see here the four main reasons why Shelby County has an ethics ordinance. The Tennessee General Assembly set forth that every county in Tennessee create an ethics ordinance to specifically address conflicts of interest and gifts given or received by elected officials, employees, and appointees of county government. In this way, Shelby County's ordinance promotes accountability and public trust, as well as gives guidance on what to do when faced with the ethical concerns we'll cover with you today. The gist of what's in the ordinance is rules involving the disclosure of personal interest, as well as under what circumstances we can give or receive gifts. As you can see from this list, pretty much everyone in a relationship with Shelby County government is covered by the ordinance. Before we go any further, there are three terms that come up a lot in the ordinance. Please take a few seconds to read through these definitions. Okay, now that you've had a chance to read and digest the definitions, let me use some plain English to describe them. I hope de minimis was pretty straightforward. Just remember that it doesn't mean something that has literally no value. It just means it's something not worth worrying about. An example might be a disposable ink pen or a single sheet of paper. Personal interest just means that you or a member of your immediate family living with you has a non-de minimis direct financial stake in the outcome of something you're expected to do in your job. An example could be a health inspector who is required to inspect a restaurant that the inspector's spouse owns. Prohibited source is anybody that is currently doing business or is seeking to do business with the county. Examples are the private contractor who provides food services to the jail division in the sheriff's office, or a specialized maintenance company that submits a bid to maintain and repair the elevators in county buildings. This slide applies to our county and joint boards and commissions. Unless you happen to be one of the very few employees who are also an approved board member, this information isn't applicable to you. For those employees who exercise discretion over county business, like most directors and administrators, disclosure of personal interests must be done in writing on the county's personal interest disclosure statement. This is a form that must be filled out every year. I'll show you what it looks like a little bit later. Once complied with, recusal, meaning removal from being involved in the first place, is not mandatory and is ultimately the decision of whomever that employee reports to, an appointing authority or elected official. This disclosure protects our employees and is not simply the county being nosy. This same written annual disclosure requirement also applies to any employee or spouse who meets the descriptions on this slide. The aforementioned written disclosure requirement must be submitted to our ethics office every year, not later than February 15th. Again, unless you're a board or commission member, don't worry about the second item on this slide. With the general standards of conduct, we're now coming to the real meat or heart of the ordinance, the parts that will apply to you no matter what kind of job you have with Shelby County. This section simply commands all of us to use county property, services, and funds for the public purpose they were meant for, and not for our personal or family use. While there is an exception here for de minimis use, remember that there is no clear dollar value assigned to what is or is not de minimis. In other words, most supervisors and staff would agree that sending a personal email once in a while to, say, arrange for some type of personal appointment is okay. But if you're operating a side business using county email or a county computer, that's a violation of the ethics ordinance, and a couple of other policies as well. Another example would be if you take a pen home one day by accident. That's probably all right. But a whole box of pens or a pen every day for a month? Not okay. Using county equipment or vehicles for personal use, like, say, to help you clean up your front yard and trim your trees at home. Bad idea. You get the picture. Let's move on. Neither a borrower nor a lender be. Remember that old saying? Well, within Shelby County, that's basically our rule too. The main intent of this particular section is to make you aware that you must not borrow money or other things of value, particularly from prohibited sources. But this rule works both ways, because you shouldn't lend money or stuff to prohibited sources either. You may wonder why a rule would address borrowing or lending money from a prohibited source. But there have been circumstances where this has occurred within Shelby County government. So for us, it is improper to lend, borrow, co-sign for, or guarantee loans with the people whom we engage in the business of government. However, reasonable rules can have reasonable exceptions. As you can see here, small amounts of money between co-workers, but not prohibited sources, are okay. And as far as family members go, loans between them and you are not within the purview of this ordinance. This section would only apply to you if you attempt to receive compensation from Shelby County through a contract or other means after leaving employment within a period of 1 year. You or your new firm can't receive compensation after you leave us for matters you worked on while you were here. With the start of this section of the presentation, we now begin a discussion on the acceptance of gifts. We're going to discuss gifts involving 3 different groups: the public, our co-workers, and prohibited sources. This first slide prohibits us and our household family members from accepting gifts or other items of value from anyone for performing our job or refraining from performing our job, unless that gift is from Shelby County. You can think of this part of the ordinance as the no tipping rule. As we saw in another area before, reasonable rules can have reasonable exceptions. We can accept certain kinds of gifts, listed here, if it meets one or more of the 3 criteria regarding to whom the gift is offered. For the last criteria, the phrase, "in the same class," can be confusing. What this means generally is that the gift should be shared with all employees in the same class or status. This can be highly variable depending on geography and logistics, but the more employees within your department or division that the gift can be shared with, the better. If it's the type of gift that cannot be shared, then the gift should be politely returned to the gift giver. For example, if a thankful citizen sent you a large fruit basket in appreciation, that gift can be easily shared with your entire office or area. But if the gift was an antique piece of furniture or a complimentary hotel stay in Tunica for 2 people, those types of gifts must be returned. If you are unsure of what to do with a received gift, consult your supervisors or human resources. As coworkers, we often have occasion to give or exchange gifts. Birthdays, holidays, or other special occasions are all acceptable times for voluntary gift giving with each other. You see here the only two requirements for sharing gifts with coworkers. Regarding the $50 cap, this clear limit does not include any paid sales taxes or delivery costs. Market value means the actual cost or value of the gift itself. The cap also does not prohibit an employee or the employee's family from receiving a gift or donation of more than $50 from an office collection or pool. The cap in this case prohibits any single employee from contributing more than $50 to the collection. For example, a group of employees takes up a collection for an employee's family because the employee is hospitalized. The collection effort generates $600 for the family. Because of the cap, this means that a dozen or more coworkers contributed no more than $50 each to the collection. Lastly, we need to discuss gifts from prohibited sources. You can see here that the rules regarding the disclosure of gifts for prohibited sources are quite strict. Note that there is no exception for gifts that might be of de minimis value. All gifts must be disclosed. This means that if you, as a Shelby County government employee, accept a gift from a prohibited source, that prohibited source is required to disclose in writing your name, business contact information, and the nature and value of the gift, even if it was, say, only a $4 jar of peanuts. That written disclosure form is considered a public document and is made readily available to the public for inspection by Shelby County government. So what's the moral here? Well, we can't tell you that the ordinance prohibits you from accepting the gift as long as it complies with all of the previous information we've discussed. But if you don't want your name out there in the public view as having accepted a gift, any gift, you might want to rethink accepting it in the first place. Here we just have a quick overview of the Ethics Commission structure and training requirements. In addition to what is listed here, by directive of the mayor, all employees within the mayor's administration will be trained on the ethics ordinance annually. This is, of course, why you're viewing this presentation and listening to me right now. Ethics complaints are serious business. If you believe you have witnessed an ethics violation or have been the victim of an ethics violation, you are strongly encouraged to swear out an ethics complaint. The complaint should thoroughly and concisely describe what happened, all parties involved, as well as where, when, and if known, how the violation occurred. If you require assistance, you can contact the ethics officer. However, please be aware that the ethics officer and ethics commission must have a signed and sworn complaint in order to investigate. It cannot act on verbal or anonymous allegations. Once an ethics complaint is received, the ethics officer will take one of three actions listed here at the second bullet. The ethics officer can also issue legal opinions regarding matters involving the ethics ordinance, but will only do so at the request of a senior authority as listed. If you believe the issuance of an ethics opinion not involving a complaint is needed, you will need to forward the issue through your chain of command to your division or department head. Because the filing requirements are strict, the ethics ordinance provides for strong whistleblower protection for employees who come forward under the ordinance, as described here. The ethics officer and human resources want you to know that ethics allegations are taken very seriously and will not tolerate anyone who interferes with or harms an employee who has stepped forward. Sometimes, Something happens at work that may look or feel like an ethics violation, but isn't. Matters involving misconduct, fraud, abuse, or waste are often covered under another county policy and have separate reporting requirements under Personnel Policy 702, or Conduct Policy. Unlike the ethics complaint procedure, reporting a conduct violation can be verbal or in writing. In fact, the Office of Internal Audit maintains a hotline for employees to report these matters. Complaints can be reported anonymously to the hotline, where a complaining party will be issued a case number identifier instead of using his or her name. Just as with the Ethics Ordinance, Personnel Policy 702 also protects whistleblowers and prohibits retaliation. Section 18-59 just identifies that any person receiving any of the actions identified on this slide must also fill out a gratuity disclosure form, just like a prohibited source. In fact, by virtue of receiving any of the actions identified, they become a prohibited source. As employees, most of us will never have to worry about this. We've mentioned a few forms during this presentation. If you need to access and complete any of these forms, here's how to find them on our website. Now, to wrap up, let's take a quick look at the forms. Here's the disclosure of interest form for board and commission members or nonprofit corporations. Again, the vast majority of us will never have to use this form. Here's the disclosure of interest form that we do care about. Many of you will have to complete this form on an annual basis, not later than February 15th. And here's the infamous gratuity disclosure form that prohibited sources are required to complete about us if we accept a gift from them. Remember, this form is a public record and is made readily available to the public. Here is the first page of what the complaint form looks like. Thank you for taking part in the county's annual ethics training. I hope you found the training helpful. If you still have questions about the ethics ordinance, please don't hesitate to talk to your supervisors or, as always, you may consult with Human Resources. If you have a concern as opposed to a hypothetical question, you may also contact the ethics officer, Damon Griffin, directly at 222-2115. Thanks again, and have a great day.